Hey Barry,
Hey, Sam.
I'm still getting my devices set up here.
Yeah, take your time. I'm a half a minute early.
And
You're choppy. I get fragments of words.
okay, testing, testing, testing. How's that audio?
Yeah, that's continuous now.
Is it too loud?
No, if anything, it's a little soft.
Okay, I'll bump it up a little bit. Okay, testing, testing, testing. One, two, three. Testing, testing, testing. One, two, three.
Yeah, that sounds about nominal.
Okay, good. Well, I was surprised at the number of people we had yesterday.
Yeah, well, Heiner was on for almost the whole time, which is uncommon, and Josh was on for pretty much the whole time.
Wait, let me switch my video camera.
What's that on the floor? Is that a drone on the floor?
Let me see. Let me switch it over and see what if I can tell what it is. Uh, I mean, where is it? Oh, no, no, no. The camera's pointing at the sky, so that's actually a fan.
That's a fan on the ceiling. Oh,
Yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
couldn't quite, parse that image.
yeah. So anyway, I'm using the integrated webcam now.
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
don't know. I guess the video quality is not as good. Let me see if I can get the other camera working.
Yeah, well, you've got bright light on the profile coming in through your window, so
Yeah, it gives me a profile from my left right here. Yeah.
you're overlit on your left side.
It's okay. I'm not photogenic anyway, so it's
Well,
better.
neither am I.
I enjoyed just audio in the past without video. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at parsing micro expressions anyway.
Yeah, me too.
And on Zoom, sometimes the frame rate is too slow for micro expressions. So
Okay. I
Mhm.
think I have the camera here. Let's see if I can attach it
yeah, so if you mount the
and
camera
switch it.
from the window to a half profile.
And then I switch it. Is that a higher quality camera? This is a Logitech.
Yeah, it's also closer up.
We
Yeah,
could count.
Logitech has an automatic zoom, I think.
We could count the hairs on your beard now.
Um, Good. Tell me what it is because I've never counted. Eric, good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Barry, it's always good to see you.
Yeah, well, may not be the most gentle. It's what I'm looking for, photogenic image. But
Okay. All right. Well, anybody want to do check-ins before I ask my usual question?
I don't have anything momentous to report.
Let me at least
Oh,
say, Eric, I am
yes.
really enthused by your follow-up on the
Okay.
atomic reference.
Yeah.
Pearl.
Yeah, I've been trying to learn on my own, just exploring different paths, and I'm documenting the paths I'm taking in workflowy, so we could go through that. But
Awesome.
see, like I'm wondering, like, would you be more like a mentor for me and guiding me, or just like on my own, I could go in my own directions and but see, like what I've felt is I've never practically seen the functional programming in action in a real company, or I mean, I know it's out there somewhere. I just haven't seen it used the
And I told
way.
you, or you probably come across the Nubank story, right?
Yeah, that I read about.
Right. Which I think is already pretty impressive. And
Oh,
then
it
there's
is.
many smaller companies, that are leveraging
Yeah. So should we put all our money in Brazil now?
If they'll take it, I probably would. I would trust that infrastructure more than I trust other infrastructure.
Probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
you have bricks now.
I don't
exactly.
know. Is Brazil waxing gibbous these days?
Brazil is at the forefront of adoption of functional technologies, particularly around financial services.
Do you remember a movie called Brazil years
Yes,
ago?
that's one of my favorite movies, by the way. I've run into very few people that have actually seen that movie. Jonathan Price,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah, it's
just
I have to watch it again, but I remember it was recommended to me by a math teacher a long time ago. So
The math teacher was probably not referring to anything mathematical about that movie.
right, but just I guess he saw like we're interested in science fiction or whatever. So
Yes.
yeah.
Curiously, Barry, have you seen that movie, Brazil?
No, I never even knew that there was such a movie.
So, Eric, do you remember anything about that movie?
It's faded. I know I enjoyed it. I know it's complicated. But I'd like to see it again. So
I'd
go ahead.
love to have an interaction with anyone who actually sees that movie because to me, at the time that I saw it, it was very impactful. And today, it's still one of my favorite movies.
When did it come out?
Probably 80s.
Oh, wow, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Holy
A long
schmoly,
time
that's
ago.
a long time ago.
But it's set in this dystopia of a future. So it's almost timeless.
Well, we are in the dystopia of the then future.
Yes. Yes. But probably more dystopic in certain ways.
Yeah,
By
so
the
I
way,
guess that
nobody
that
got
could be
my
my
pun. Nobody got my pun. Is Brazil waxing gibbous?
wondering about that now. Let's see. Well, it's
Brazil
the
is not a
moon.
moon. That's a reference to a moon. It's a phase of the moon.
Mhm.
It's whether or not it's actually what? Getting into close to full moon. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, waxing gibbous means growing and more than halfway there. But Brazil waxing is also another reference.
Oh, you're talking about. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So when I
Surprised you're
said it's
making that
Brazil
reference,
waxing
Barry.
gibbous, it's one of those ambiguous.
Have you had your Brazilian this month?
So like another reference, when I say yeah, maybe Sam could be my mentor, I'm talking about Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid.
Ah,
Wax on,
Wax
wax
on,
off.
wax off. Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, you gotta put me through the ringer before I
That's the thing about
master.
words. They have literal and figurative and metaphorical and poetic meanings, and
Mhm.
easy to make puns that nobody gets the second
yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
on these topics, I'm nowhere near as masterful as Miyagi was,
Mhm.
but I have a curious interest in all of this stuff, and I'm trying to learn as quickly as I can. In fact, here's a question. I know that you work for a company. What is it? Club Med?
No, I wish I did. It's called Insight. They're a pharmaceutical developer for rare blood cancers.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
you're
so
mixing me up.
is this something that you're thinking about applying at work or thinking about doing a personal project on?
I'm thinking more personal project.
Bingo.
Yeah,
Because if
and
so, I've got a personal project and I'd
mhm,
love to sort of, learn in parallel or even work together.
yeah. hmm Yeah, so we never really got together on how we're going to collaborate or what the scope
Yeah.
is of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
It's
know
the
you've been
bane of,
busy. You haven't made many of these calls and I haven't reached out to you. So this is a good opportunity to reconnect.
hmm
All right. Let's not bore Barry. Um, but I just want to say that was pretty cool that you followed up on that reference and are learning. And by the way, that video that you sent about Rich Hickey talking about the fundamentals and
hmm
it's very good. That's probably the third or fourth time I watched it, but I did rewatch it, when he sent that video.
Yeah, I mean, it gets me thinking about the SQL that we have all over the place.
I mean, do you get the fact that, with data immutability, a lot of problems go away?
Yeah, I get that.
And did you get the points he made about locality?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, there's yeah, you see that even instantaneous around the world. There's time before like, the leap year comes or the new year and leap second comes, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like this word that sometimes applies to these kind of databases. Sometimes the word bitemporal comes up. I actually don't like that word,
I wouldn't.
but that is a reference to some of these techniques that he's talking about.
hmm
You know,
Yeah, I mean, I like that he still preserves transactions
yes.
and
But
time.
you have transaction IDs and everything is append only. That's what they
Yep.
call. Yeah.
Yeah, and append only is the fundamentals of the distributed decentralized web. And
Well, Hickey was doing this since many years ago. Okay.
right, so why, yeah, so is there a datomic for the decentralized web and why not?
Why not? Like you
Yeah.
said, he says he can use anything for the
hmm
persistence layer.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So persistence could be on my laptop and serving to whoever connects to me as a peer. Yeah, and everybody else could have a peer, and you could have, if you really want to have a service that provides peering, that people are doing it.
Do it on do it on Ethereum, do it on whatever the hot.
Right, but you don't even need a blockchain.
Right.
Yep.
Right. For people who care, they can do it that way.
Right.
But like you said, you can do it on Dynamo, you can do it on, Postgres.
Yep.
Okay, I think we've sufficiently bored Barry.
Yeah. How you doing, Barry?
Am I doing? Oh, pretty good. I mean, I'm now a week into this eye's been more, well, this eye was done Monday a week ago. This eye is now 5 weeks. And the last they measured me on Tuesday was 20/25 in both eyes, one day later and 4 weeks later. And I think those are likely to improve, maybe down to 20/20. I don't know for sure, but
Yep.
Awesome. Are you still seeing floaters?
yeah, well, the floaters I've had since a child, and they never go away. There's not really a realistic way to get rid of floaters. I mean, they can do operations, but it's contraindicated, I think, in my case. And the thing is, when you have both eyes, the likelihood of having simultaneous persistent floaters in the center of your vision, both eyes for any length of time is, and it doesn't matter. The thing that's odd is in my peripheral vision, because there's a window over here on my left. If a floater goes by in my peripheral vision, I think there's somebody coming up my walkway outside my window, and I got to go and look. Nope, that wasn't anything. That was just a floater going by in my peripheral vision.
Now, there's a National Geographic out about the brain. All the new advances in brain research. It's on newsstands. It's fascinating.
What do they highlight? Anything fascinating?
I haven't looked at it much, but there are some new technique. They've really learned more. Well, I guess comparing it to neural nets, but also the ideas of localization of function, that's out the window. It's really coordination of all these parts.
Holographic memory seems to be more the model, isn't it?
I guess so. Yeah, it's fascinating to ponder, but
we live in fascinating times. I mean, I look at what's going on there. I look at what's going on in computing, especially with quantum computing.
Oh yeah.
What's going on with JWST and all the stuff we're learning there about the disappearance now. It's essentially going to get obliterated, this whole Big Bang theory thing, There's no, we've been saying for years now, Big Bang is so inconsistent with a lot of our observations.
Yeah, well, even Hawking reversed himself on his graduate paper. Yeah.
Yeah, and even whether or not we can actually see anything around a black hole. Now, obviously, we have Hawking radiation, and we can see some of that. It's just fascinating. And yet, the din from the AI community still seems to be AI is going to be the end of humanity. That's that volume of things that I'm hearing.
Is it a monster or is it our savior? And it's a split decision on whether AI is going to be a monster that destroys us or a savior that saves us.
Well, see, I think it could be our savior, but there's too many human monsters, and they're going to create AI monsters.
Well, that's the whole thing. Can AI be ethical enough to defend itself against the bad actors who are humans, who try to corrupt it?
Or will AI be the end of the stupid humans, and then only the smart ones will be left?
Well, as the floor rises, we're all going to end up being classified as stupid by AI.
Okay.
Because AI is going to get smarter and smarter and smarter.
Yeah.
So no matter where you are, eventually there will be a day.
Are we going to sink in our level of what's the percent? How fast are we going to descend in our percentile ranking?
But like, say I just choose not to pay attention to a lot of stuff that I know is BS, and I just focus on what I enjoy, what I want to read, and so I build my own little what do you call it? I don't know the word, but
your world, your man.
My Calvin and Hobbes world,
right
world. So if you're interested in sort of the fantasy fiction then AI is your friend. If you're interested in ground truth of science, then AI is not yet your friend.
It could
It
be a
could
helpful
be, but it
guide.
isn't yet.
But see, here's a potential problem: is that if we each decide to pursue our own interests, and it's not evident how that benefits society or benefits the greater good, then at some point there will be some AI that says that person's a waste of energy. And you know, that's not a hard conclusion to imagine.
Well, is that the
Yeah, they're
Matrix?
not a net contributor to the welfare of the planet and the race and whatever.
But who's making those decisions about? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are very judgmental just by nature. It's very hard to be non-judgmental. It's considered to be a virtue to be non-judgmental, but it's not an easy virtue to achieve.
Any ability to do if then is a discrimination of a sort. And if you
Yeah,
take that to an extreme, then that's judgment.
yeah. Exclusive people tend to use exclusive or when they ought to be able to do inclusive or.
Let me parse that.
There's a tendency to say if you're not with us, you're against us, as opposed to you're
Uh, that's such a logical fallacy.
yeah, like that's the whole point. It's easy to make the mistake of adopting exclusive or when you probably should adopt inclusive or.
It's like, dear, you look beautiful today. What? Was I ugly yesterday?
Exactly. Yeah. Um, and this inclusive or exclusive or dichotomy, I think that's one of the real banes of language. The fact that we have a word that can be interpreted one of two very distinct ways.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
probably a mistake of language, one of many. These ambiguities on the meanings of words is, I mean,
Actually,
in math, you try to avoid ambiguous symbols.
yeah.
Or if you
Well,
have them, they're expressly like X is the unknown, it's expressly ambiguous until you find out which it is.
You know, is there
yeah.
any language that has fewer ambiguities? I believe Esperanto was a designed language, but I don't know it. So I don't know if it's more precise.
Yeah.
Now, we sent records on Voyager 1 and 2, and we tried to teach on the records a primer of our mathematics so they could find out where we are and using binary and the hydrogen atom spin as a unit of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Having
Mhm.
yeah, having a message that only has one consistent interpretation, and that's not easy to do in English. Puns and multiple interpretations are so commonplace in spoken languages, especially English. I think other languages maybe don't have it as big a problem as English with its importation of words from so many other languages and cultures. And so such a rich use of metaphors and poetic terms.
You know, it's
So-
hard enough given a language framework or backdrop or understanding to form a well-formed statement. But
Yeah, well-formed
it's
format.
harder even in this case that Eric talks about, where you don't have such a language framework and you're sending an artifact and you're expecting some intelligent entity to basically infer the language structure and the language framework, and then to ascribe meaning to what that artifact is trying to convey.
And they have a lot
That's
of
a
work
double
to do.
problem.
Yeah, they have a
You see
lot
it.
of work to do to get
Yes.
to the
You
message.
see a
Not
lot of
only
that in
that, we
headlines.
may have done a lousy job, although Carl
Well,
Sagan's a brilliant guy.
Yeah, he did a good job, but he was rushed. Like
Yeah.
so.
You see a lot of that in headlines where the part of speech of word in a headline isn't obvious, whether it's a verb or a noun or an adjective, or how to diagram the sentence or the
Often that's
phrase.
intentional. They want to go for puns too in these.
Yeah, and I look at headlines and after I read the article, oh, it's not what I thought the headline was saying. It's
Yeah.
had to parse
clickbait.
it a different way.
It's
So
trolling.
can an LLM help here to bridge gaps between individuals and
If you
messages?
tell an LLM, I want a phrase that doesn't have ambiguous multiple meanings,
Mhm.
it can probably limit the likelihood that a word or phrase or sentence has multiple plausible meanings.
You know, that's actually one way I apply a heuristic to some text to see if an LLM produced it or not. Because if it's very precise about its pronoun references, about, you know, how it sequences statements and whatever, humans are not necessarily very good at that.
They're terrible at it.
Right. So if that is done well, more likely than not, it's done by some LLM,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
So
So
I'm wondering, as an intermediary for communication, like say, I want to ask the LM, how do I explain this to a 7-year-old? And it gives me something. Yeah.
yeah.
So that every word is well known in a general vocabulary and doesn't have so many possible definitions that you're not sure what the person was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can preface it as using a 5th grade reading level, blah.
Yep.
Using a college level reading level,
Yeah.
blah.
Right.
Yeah. And for me to understand what 7-year-olds are saying these days, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of English as a way to say something precise. And then when you realize that and you go back to mathematical or scientific language, then you've lost your audience because they don't know what the hell the symbols of the words mean.
Right. Ericsson's reference to kids has me remember this joke of a story where 2 kids are talking about, you know, their parents being a POS. You know what that means in vernacular, right? And then the parent looks over and says, "What do you mean? What is a POS?" And the student says, "Oh, parent over shoulder. That's what it means."
There you go.
So it's that kind of thing that can happen with LLMs, and you know,
Yeah. Yeah, that's LOL. Lots of love. There's a famous
LOL's been there since like UUCP days, Usenet days. Remember those?
Yep.
In the
Yeah.
70s?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it probably came from Plato or early the Plato system in universities where
Yeah.
they
Oh, that
experiment.
library system. Wow. That's a long reference. That's a very old reference.
Yeah, the 70s. Yep. It's still up if you want to use it.
Who the heck could have figured it out? You had to be a librarian. You had to be, you know, extremely highly, you had to be good at memorizing things. Do you remember the dialogue system?
Yes, I used it.
Yeah. That had a bunch of arcane slash commands, you know, for you to do
Mhm.
searches. How many
Yeah.
of you were on OS 360 on an IBM?
Oh yeah, I was big time on that in the mid 60s.
Yeah, I had
Remember?
mainframe coding. Yeah,
I
COBOL.
would log in and, you know, in the 74, which is when I did it, you know, we had these CRT screens, which were very new at the time. And once it booted and once I was able to log in, the first line I would see is Rex is in control. Do you remember that? REXX. It
Never
was
saw.
it was this job control language, you know.
Oh, but
Think of it as a
JCL,
shell.
you know,
To show.
yeah, back in early days, it was job control language with the 360 in the
JCL, yeah.
1960s. I didn't remember anything about Rex.
See, by the time I got into it, they had people who made menus for us, so we didn't see the guts of it.
Oh, so you're on green screen, you know,
We
you
were
had,
on IBM PCs with a terminal emulator that communicated to the mainframe, so it came through in color to us.
so
And we,
color, holy smokes. Okay, so that was much
yeah, yes, because they just made it too easy.
I was
And
green screen way back with function keys, you know, on a 3270 terminal.
yeah, well, my Apple IIe started with just an amber monitor, so I sort of get the picture. I mean, I've seen them. So we're several generations here of computer history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how do we talk to each other? Our references. Yeah.
But I am very enthused to see if we can collaborate on a personal project regarding functional projects, functional approaches, datomic, you know, that would be awesome. I've got like 6 different projects I've been holding off for about 15 years because I said I'm too busy with my work. Well, I'm thinking about, you know, doing other things now. So
Well, do you have like a a simple starter project for learning Datomic as you go and setting something up?
The simplest possible one is the classic, just an action item tracker. I want to basically start with something like that.
What kind of tracker?
An action item.
Action item. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Although the way I want to do it is with a protocol that's extensible, so that you can then have a chronology and an event log that can be attached to any other object.
Okay.
So in other words, you could take an object from, let's say, Microsoft Teams or Zoom record or any calendar project, okay, and bring it in so that you can join it with this event processing thing. And because I want to do it in Datomic, I don't care about the schema. Okay? The schema is flexible.
Build your own schema as you go.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So it's ultimately extensible, and use that as kind of a negotiation platform.
Yeah. So another project I'm working on, which I see the value of using something like Datomic, would be like tracking veterans. So like in a cemetery, and what wars were they in, what medals did they earn, and even in their names, they could have nicknames, and and sometimes you don't know the dates of birth, or maybe you have like just the years. So yeah, an incomplete data, trying to track it all, but fill it in over time as you get more information.
Okay, it's 8:25 a.m. Pacific time.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys like, I could discuss an idea with you, which I think is a potential service we could build together, or I could build or you could build or whatever. But I'm kind of weary about whether or not if we get into it, we want to share it publicly. So
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
we
do it
could set up other times, or
let's set up a
you could
different
always,
time on that.
yeah.
In fact, depending on your availability, I could do it, later today too, if you like. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I'm home later if you want to
Okay. All right.
regroup. Yeah,
Yeah,
so this
take a
is more
note.
like what do we want from Collaborology between us?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you can turn off the recording for a fragment of the time if you want.
Yeah,
and
but
then
then it makes it
You
hard to
still want it.
upload and connect,
Okay.
yeah.
Or at
Yeah.
the end, you can turn off the recording.
Or you
Yeah.
could edit it afterwards,
You
but
can
then
do an hour and a half and
things-
then turn off the recording for the final segment.
We'll set up something later.
Okay, all right. That's a note. But even on the whole Doug Engelbart program for the future GCC set of projects, there's already 6 or 7 there that I've been very open about.
Yeah.
So we can discuss those.
Yes, like your original idea was, can we run NLS today? But so if we can get access, we probably can. But who knows about getting access?
And that's some dependency that right now, at least
Yeah.
you can tell from me, I'm not very optimistic about being able to unblock that.
Right, but what I want to ask you is, if you had an NLS system, yeah, what would you want that's modern versus what you had in 68? Like, see, Doug had his own language for moving blocks, moving statements, plexes. Do you still, I mean, workflowy is pretty much a lot of that, but what are you missing that Doug had ideas about?
View specs is missing.
Okay, in modern, yeah,
yeah.
right.
And very flexible, almost arbitrarily flexible navigation, which Doug had. Because they start from this plex, go to the nth thing, go to the reference carried by the 4th word, and then go down to that thing, so you could actually string together navigation directives in NLS, which no system today, I believe, does.
Okay. So like they added these purple numbers with
that's
just like
one very good step, but it's a step. Yes, it's a good step.
Yeah, but you could reference a section by number.
That's a necessary anchor, that you need for everything else. Yeah.
Right. And there is a permanent number as well that you could reference.
Semi-permanent. It's only as good as the .com and the IP,
Well, yeah, see, now there's where the decentralized web could help, because you have a permanent address.
That's right. So in fact, if we really cared about that, maybe have you looked into IPFS and how good that is?
I've very fundamental understanding of it. I've been more on the DAT stack, but I could easily go look into it more.
I'm not as confident that that's the solution. Not as confident as I am, like, for example, Datomic is a good solution. I'm very confident on that. But as far as the permanent understructure, infrastructure, I'm not sure if it's IPFS. I'm not sure if it's, some decentralized Ethereum or Holochain or whatever else.
Yeah, it seems like we always have to build our own tools. Nothing is ever good enough for us.
Well, at the very basic, you kind of rely on DNS, right? And DNS has no
Right.
guarantee of permanence.
Right, but you don't even need DNS with peer-to-peer
That's right.
networks now.
But then you need some redundancy and some ability to figure
Yeah.
out what's authoritative.
Yeah, you want to reference links. So like what you were describing earlier, you could store URLs to everything you're trying to link together right now. And yeah, so but then what does that give you? You still have to jump between them and things can disappear. And
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
So yes, save every web page you visit somewhere and then reference it locally. What do you do?
Well, we could go a number of ways. Anything
Yeah.
here look like it's worth following up, because I have two other possibilities that I could lay on the table.
Why don't you just lay them out and we'll
Okay.
evaluate them later.
A week or two ago, one of my friends, and I'll reference her name by name, Sherry Herndon, actually announced to her Facebook friends that she is voting for RFK Jr. And she said, I don't want to blog or I don't want to debate on the merits of RFK as a candidate or whatever. But she said she's going to soon attend an event. And she was soliciting questions from her Facebook friends. What would be good questions to ask a candidate? So I put together like 12.5 questions of questions that I would ask a presidential candidate. And I thought, that's just what came to mind just really, really quick. But I was thinking maybe it's useful for us to think, if we had the opportunity, what would we ask a presidential candidate? So I put the link to that post in our chat just now. And I'll see whether or not the chat is still there. Yeah.
Make sure it's public and not limited to just friends only.
Oh, so you can't see it?
No, I'm asking you when you bring it up. Look at the distribution.
I can see it, but I'm a friend of hers, so I don't know.
Does it have a world?
Yes, it has a world visibility icon.
Then it's publicly readable.
Yes.
Let me try on my side.
So for the record, she says, I'm voting for RFK and we'll be meeting with him and other donors. The event already passed, so I already
right.
I would love to tap into the credible collective intelligence here and see what questions you would ask if this was for a debate or a small fireside chat. Please note that this is not the place to discuss the merits or say you don't like him or anything else. This is just clear, good questions to ask someone who's running for president. I ask you to respect the space and a genuine question I'm posing. Thank you very much. I'm very excited. So I posted a bunch of questions, as you can see.
Yeah, I could see them.
Yeah. So
I have one question I'd like to ask any candidate for a position of authority.
How would you word that question?
Well, I'm not sure exactly how I would word it, but it would be to try to discern their ability to do ethical reasoning reliably and adhere to it.
Yes, I think I had a question about ethics. Let me see if I have.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to word it so that I would get, the kind of answer I'm looking but somebody who could say something that would assure me that they know how to do ethical reasoning and they'll adhere to it versus they haven't a clue how to do ethical reasoning.
Okay, so I think you're more direct. I would love to see you express that, verbatim, but I had two references to ethics in my list of questions. And just for the record, one was, how will you restore honesty, integrity, transparency, and accountability in the fourth estate? That's a reference to it. And the second was, will you work to impeach and remove corrupt and unethical Supreme Court justices?
Yeah, which assumes that they know how to discern ethical versus corrupt.
Well, we know that at least one of them cannot.
Well, that's the whole point. You want to determine whether a person even has the ability to reliably discern ethics.
But on the other hand, Eric is not from the United States. Are you?
Yeah, I'm in the United States.
Oh, I thought you were in Canada.
No, you're in Pennsylvania, aren't you?
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Pennsylvania. Why am I confusing you with somebody in Canada?
Well, the guy in Canada was Colin.
Okay, I apologize. Okay,
it's all right.
Okay, good. So this is relevant to you, hopefully. So anyway, I thought, number one, what would be the questions you would come up? Number two, if you look at my list of questions, what did I miss? Because I'm clearly, I got some blind spots and I got some things that I focus on. So I was just wondering whether you had a chance to take a look at that list yet.
Well,
Where-
without looking at the list,
Where is the
um,
list? Is it on
Wait, you
the?
can't see it? They're
it's on
comments.
Facebook.
They're
Oh,
comments on
I
that
have to
post.
go to that. I have to go to that Facebook page
All right,
first.
let me do this. Can I take 1 minute and read those questions that I posted?
Well,
Well,
before you read them, I want to comment before reading them that
Okay.
in general, I'd want to understand the candidates, their the historical background of the United States. Like, what is the United States as different from anyone else? And just the fundamental principles, like how do they view the Constitution these days? Is it are these principles still in our collective consciousness? Do we yeah, and
Now, are you the only respondent?
No, someone else actually did respond way at the bottom, but
yeah,
not
so
with a
that
real question.
okay, so now I could look at your
My
questions.
Yeah,
God, you got
so
a ton of responses that are most relevant. I mean, all
may
comments.
I read them for the record? Or should I just share the screen?
No, I have the page loaded now. I just had to copy the. I
Okay,
actually
so I'm
don't
just
see.
wondering about people who watch this later on, since I'm not sharing the screen. Will you humor me and let me take 1 minute to read these questions?
Yeah, go ahead and read them.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
first, one, do you agree there is too much systemic racism throughout police forces in this country? Two, do you agree the ultra rich ought to pay more taxes? Three, do you think a felon should be able to run for any government office, let alone the presidency? Four, do you agree there ought to be universal health care as is offered in most other countries? Next, should churches be taxed if they take and encourage political positions? Next, can you unblock the trials of Trump charges actively being delayed by Trump appointees? Next, do you support abolition of the Electoral College? Next, how will you restore honesty, integrity, transparency, accountability in the Fourth Estate? Next, how will you work to repeal Citizens United? Next, do you believe women can take responsibility for their own bodies? Next, will you work to impeach and remove corrupt and unethical Supreme Court justices? Next, will you protect Social Security funds from being siphoned off for other purposes? Next, will you be transparent on your tax returns? Next, do you believe in the scientific method, critical thinking, evidence and logic-based decision-making? Next, will you hold yourself accountable to a code of ethics or conduct? There it is, Barry. Will you hold yourself accountable to a code of ethics or conduct? If yes, how will you do so? And if not, why not? Next, did Trump instigate the January 6th insurrection? Next, are you going to let religion or any church influence your actions if you attain the office? That's my list of questions.
One thing that I would add is, should the 17th Amendment be repealed? And that would be,
Remind me what that one is.
okay, that's the Senate used to be appointed by the state legislatures, but they made it into where we vote for senators. And just going back to the structure of the country, the House is meant to be the people's representative, and the states are meant to be represented in the Senate. And now, can you trust the judgment of the people, or should it be more of a state function? Like, what's been the impact of that since it passed?
You mean going back to letting elected officials of the state appoint their senators as opposed to voting for them? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yes.
Okay, it never occurred to me that that was even something that people thought was a reasonable
Yeah.
idea.
Mhm.
Going away from democracy and back to second order representation. The representatives elect the next level of representatives. It's sort of like appointment. And yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's just that, like, going back to the fundamental principles of what the role is, because these senators, they're doing treaties, and I think the roles have been mutated since. So that's my theory there.
I think the issue there that you're referring to is this one about small groups of people in outlying counties and states having undue influence and power compared to dense population centers. I think that's how I read it.
Okay, yeah, there was that original compromise where the small states felt they wouldn't have representation if it was just by population, and that's why the Senate was
Yeah.
just two per state.
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting back
And
to the question about wording of the ethics question that I have in mind, I think it would be more like a meta question, something like asking a candidate, how can you assure the electorate that you are competent at ethical reasoning and therefore can arrive at justifiable ethical discernment and adhere to it? So basically, if they suck at ethics, they won't be able to answer that in a way that's convincing. And if they are, they'll actually spell out, here's how I do my ethical reasoning, and here's, why you should believe that I can not only do it, but adhere to it. So I think it's sort of at the meta level.
that's a question that should be asked of Clarence Thomas and Alito and
Oh
Brett
yeah.
Kavanaugh.
The only thing is how to word it so that if they waffle on the question, you can tell they're waffling.
The history shows you how Clarence Thomas has been waffling.
Yeah.
The history shows you how Alito has been waffling ever since he blamed his wife for the upside down flag.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can tinker with the wording, but that's it. You want somebody to say something that will absolutely assure me that you know what it means to do ethical reasoning. You can demonstrate that you have that competence and some reason to believe that you would adhere to it historically as well as in the future.
I agree with you, but in my entire lifetime watching the media, I've never heard those two words, ethical reasoning, from the media.
Well, I can't say if I ever have either, but there is such a thing as an ethical calculus. I mean, that's the whole point of studying ethics in philosophy or John Rawls or anybody like that.
Is that required in a communications major before you become a reporter or journalist?
Oh yeah, my friend Nancy Williams, who taught ethics and journalism, that was the whole point. Don't be a journalist if you can't do ethics, because you're going to get sued.
What year was that?
Yeah.
That she taught that?
Or yeah, what year did she?
She's my age. She's my age. She's in her late
Right.
70s.
Yeah, I think
go
it's
to
all
journalism
changed.
schools in almost any school will you find that course.
Well, I mean, ethics and journalism, that was Utah State University School of Department of Communication. I can't remember the name of the
And Eric, my apologies.
department, but ethics and journalism was a required course for journalism students. Otherwise, you end up like Alex Jones, who does these conspiracy theories and then basically goes bankrupt. The whole idea is don't be a journalist if you're going to be Alex Jones and have your whole career and your financial your ability to sustain your what's the word I'm looking for? Source of income.
And for the record, I apologize for being rude to you, Eric. I realize I interrupted you. I apologize.
That's okay. I don't even remember what it was.
I don't either.
Okay.
But yeah. So I think finding out a good way to word that generic question for a generic candidate would be a useful exercise, and then sort of getting it out there as an exemplary kind of question to ask. And then how to parse the answer to tell if they're bullshitting and waffling, or whether they're giving a convincing answer that yes, they know how to do ethics, and yes, there's evidence that they have and will continue to adhere to it.
So I'm writing a note to Sherry in that same post saying, Sherry, basically saying, what did you get as a response? I'm gonna see if I can.
Oh, okay.
See, journalists were supposed to be that fourth branch of government to
yeah. And so yes, in terms of that the journalists who are asking the questions are asking it on our behalf. That's the kind of question I would like a journalist to ask in a debate, for example, or just in any kind of an occasion where they're talking to a candidate, interview or something.
Right.
Go ahead, Sam.
I years ago posted on Facebook that anytime we had a press conference, that every journalist, in fact, every attendee, ought to bring their own self-made sign. Okay. And it would say, no, that's a lie on one side. And the other side would say, yes, that is verified. Okay. Because there's no chance really to have anyone say, oh, by the way, that's not correct. I have to correct you for the record on this. But if everybody was able to just hold up their sign and say, that's a bleeping lie. Okay. Exactly. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. Then at least a camera pan could show, yeah, most of the people just think you're full of bullshit, or most
Nancy
people.
Pelosi tearing up the printout of the Trump State of the Union address.
I think that would be a very good practice to introduce in journalism if we had true journalists. That's becoming less and less of a possible truth these days.
Yeah. Right. So that's my.
I'd love to see somebody like Rachel Maddow in real time respond to these pieces of crap that are being.
Maddow would be the perfect person to ask that kind of question. She would phrase it beautifully.
Yeah. Or Lawrence O'Donnell. He's another good one.
Yeah, he can do it too. Yeah. And
Glenn Kirshner. Brian Taylor Cohen. There's
Nicole Wallace could probably ask it well. Almost any of those pundits on MSNBC could probably formulate the question.
Is there Paul Wallace? I knew there was a Chris Wallace. Who's Paul Wallace?
Nicole Wallace hosts the 4 o'clock in the afternoon Deadline White House. She is not related to Chris Wallace.
Okay.
She's married to a Wallace of a different genealogy.
So if everyone was using NLS these days, would we be able to have these discussions?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Because we could then, say this is a supporting, this is a contradictory, and then do analytics on those kind of things and follow up. And the analytics are not so important for truth, but they're important for analysis, for follow up.
Yeah, I think you have to have the provenance of people's work and opinions.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can see why somebody said something, which is really important.
Yeah, and linked to their biography. Where did they grow up? Where did they go to school? And so you know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really key, because I see so many times in journalism, people say, I can't tell the truth. This person said that person said this. What? You can't understand reasoning. You can't understand how you follow that, particular path of thought to get to this versus that. And you can see, well, that one's very well substantiated. And this, that's just, from Alex Breitbart or whatever.
But you also have to look at it in terms of the art of persuasion, how people are trying to persuade others to their viewpoint.
I've got a cat on my keyboard.
Yeah, wonderful. It's writing a novel. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love this cat. This is like a 26-pound tatami.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yesterday I saw one of these YouTube shorts on the world's largest cat species.
Mm-hmm.
Man, some of them get to be 30 whatever pounds. I thought this was a big cat already at 26 pounds.
Yeah, some of them are lions.
Yeah. But anyway, this one may have parts of Maine Coon.
Right. I'm just putting in a sort of a slightly edited, refined phrasing of the ethics question, subject to further refinement. But
by the way, if I disconnect soon, it's because the cat stepped on something.
Okay.
If you disconnect, does that mean the recording goes away? I think it does.
Or would it save it up to the point?
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. That's one question I don't know. If the host disconnects, does the recording stop? I don't know.
Yes, it does, because I'm recording on my machine.
Right. Well, you're not recording to the cloud.
No, I have way exceeded my cloud allocation, so they don't let me do that anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Zoom recording in the cloud when only the co-host is left is something I've never found out the answer to.
I think that still works. I know that has still worked in the past.
Well, the little sign, that recording sign in the top will drop away when you're not recording, or it'll even say recording is stopped.
Well, see, I can't see my screen anymore. Is it still recording?
Yeah, if you put I put my mouse up at the top,
Okay,
Oh,
because my cat has changed my visible screen to something else, so I'm laying on the keyboard right now, so I can't get to
I
it.
mean,
Hitting
the
on the
only case
keys.
where I really care about recording is at Toastmasters, where that's an essential thing. But
Mhm.
here, if we lose a part of recording, it's not the end of the world.
Yep.
Okay. Um, could I
So
Anyway,
share, could I
so
share my screen when, or do you want to keep talking on this?
no, sure. I was basically going to wrap up this segment of the talk by saying I'm glad you guys let me go through this topic because to me it was curious to see whether any missing categories would have been easily identified. So I appreciate you guys listening to any of this.
Sam,
Yeah.
should I paste that revised wording into your friend's?
Sure, go ahead, do it,
Let me
do
go
it.
ahead and do
Do it.
that.
Yeah, see, I'm also wondering how effective would she be at getting her message out? Like maybe it would RFK notice her, and does she need like 100,000 Facebook followers for him to take notice or something like that? It's a question of getting your voice heard these days.
Yeah, I don't know those statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, to tell me. Okay, so
So,
I think I appreciate you letting me do that. We can conclude this section of the what do we call this conversation? Eric,
yeah,
please do move on to whatever it is you wanted to bring up.
okay. I'm gonna share my desktop and flip over to okay, I wanted to show Hyperscope, what they have online now, and some of the features you could play with now. So like here is Doug's article, and you can take out the blank lines if you want more real estate. You can
Yep,
turn off the purple numbers. And when you go into an X, you can expand the level. So B gives you one more level.
yep,
So, okay, so these are view specs essentially, and they're codified up here. Now, see what I like about this is a light mode. And then when you get comfortable with that, you do a light plus and you get some more features you could play with. Now, one thing that really frustrates me these days is hitting a key and having the computer do something, and I don't know what it did, and I don't know how to undo it. So see, I think one theory that Doug may have had is that users should have the training in the fundamentals, and then if they hit a wrong key, it should do nothing. And then when they learn the next step, then you get access to the new features, and you're trained on them, so you know that okay, I have another button that will do something. Because the websites today, it's insane what the user interfaces and what they do behind the scenes of these hovering, spell checking and grammar and changing your text on the fly, and then you send an email and it's not what you intended. So I just wanted to point that out. So these are the modes they have. They have a max, which gives you all these features of NLS, and expert, you could turn off and try just using the keys yourself. And there's a developer mode. Yeah, so there's some extra features for developers for testing here. So there's a handful of documents you could use this on now to explore and play with. So like this view here of seeing the first line of every paragraph, it's like a good summary, I think, and seeing more of the structure. And then you could go to the table of contents view and jump to something that looks interesting to you. And then, I mean, I'm not really using this much, but it's something to be familiar with. Okay. Now, looking at our workflowy, I've collapsed it up to here. So this is what we started with in April.
mhm,
And the high level topics are initial thoughts and notes. Where do we start? Questions, education, and useful references. That's what it's evolved into.
mhm.
And I've started putting in some references, the books, the oral history, and my education paths. So here's what I've put in for my education. So we could, yeah, if anyone wants to see what I'm doing.
Hey, you haven't found the book where I've got a chapter yet.
Oh, I know about that one. I just haven't put it in here. I've seen that before. Yeah. Questions. We could look at some of these. Where do we start? We could delve into let's see, the initial thoughts. Yeah, these are old thoughts. Thinking about connecting with Eugene Eric Kim. I don't know if this YouTube from the 7th of April was ever published.
Yeah,
You
that's an
still
action
have you,
item I haven't done yet.
okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, now let me just see,
By the
where do
way,
we,
just a quick note on that one. I did try with this infra notice tool that I
yeah.
found, but
Hmm.
it requires a subscription, and I've actually paid it. But then I can't figure out how to use it. So I
Yeah,
got to
that's
get
the
together
problem.
with their tech support and figure out how to do this.
Right. Okay, now let's see. We were thinking of where do we start? Well, there's ongoing research of previous NLS systems experiments. Yeah, I've been experimenting. I got my little keyboard key set working.
All right.
Uh, yeah, that it works with the org term.
Have you learned
So
the chords for all the letters?
yeah, I'm getting better at it because I'm actually practicing with Barry's mud, like navigating with the key set.
Awesome.
Yep. Okay. We were thinking about desirements. Let's just see what we got here. Yeah, I want to understand the speed that Doug had. We want strict separation of data, NLS style terminal editing with user determined commit points, like Git rebasing. What was I thinking? Let's see. Pull requests, decentralized web, features not available today. So, like you mentioned, view specs. Do we have more under that? Oh,
Mhm,
I was just making highlights from some documents.
mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Eric,
Let's see.
while you're
Yeah.
going through this, can you see how if each of these nodes was one of the triples in
Mm-hmm.
Datomic,
Mm-hmm.
how that could be then constructed, and we would have just ultimate power over what was being done here. I just
Yeah,
wanted
your
to at
link,
least make
yeah,
that
go.
connection.
Yes, you're expanding and collapsing. Yeah, so this expands, and this is a reference to computerhistory.org and another, yeah, yeah, just some, I think these are both from that article.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, so yeah, workflow is nice. With yeah, because it's a modern interface to what Doug envisioned, sort of.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, does adding functionality to org term, we could always do that whenever we want.
Mhm.
We never got to documentation about our collaboration. I have your 9 artifacts. We never did a CCC or COI. So, like, what would be the benefit of us doing a CCC?
We could then see what we intend to do together
Hmm.
as individual statements. And then we would set up expectations, which hopefully will prevent or minimize disappointment later down the line.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, for me finding time for projects, it's tricky, work and other social things, and but I think I've got a handle on work right now. I like we're progressing forward, and so um, see, I'm not retired where I could just do this full time. Maybe one day I will be, but
I hope to be soon.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, Barry, how's retirement? Is it worth it?
Uh, Oddly enough, I can't find enough things to fill up my time that are still
You
within
like to learn
my interest,
closure.
energy, and cognitive faculties.
Yep.
In other words,
Okay.
there are periods of boredom and loneliness where there's not enough to do that's doable and worth
Can
doing.
Eric and I give you tasking?
Well, I said to Anne Marie that she could offload some thinking tasks that are still within my bailiwick, not too taxing and not too urgent. Um, but my sphere of functionality is shrinking,
Mm,
and my energy levels and motivations levels are shrinking too. So it's getting
mhm.
harder and harder to find worthwhile things that are worth doing. I have energy and interest to do.
Okay. And the other thing we mentioned was a COI, practices of self and peer accountability, community of impact.
Have
Yeah,
I
so
given
like
you that link?
I'm
If
sure I
not,
could
it's
find it.
communityofimpact.info. I should have put that in here.
Okay, let me go there. See, is it still up?
I hope it's still up.
Yes,
There
it is. Okay. So deciding to commit to be good. Okay. Being explicit, transparent about what we want to accomplish. Accountability. Yep. Retrospectives. And you have your CCCs. Align your good and their good. Okay, that's it. And you have some comments. Yep. Okay. So, yeah, so like we could like think about things we could do together and help each other, but then if there's someone else who eventually comes in, yeah, think about that. Yeah, so two peers, so I'm accountable to Barry and Sam, right? Sam's busy for a minute.
I was muting while Amazon was talking to me. Alexa
Oh,
was talking to
okay.
me. So
Okay.
yeah, basically this is a self-identifying, self-opt-in identification of alignment with these principles. Okay. And if
Right.
you hold yourself accountable to these principles, you declare yourself, hey, I'm a member of the COI because I do this for myself and I'm holding myself accountable with a couple of people. That part is the difficult part
Right.
because finding two people who want to do this and who are
Mhm.
willing to be very, very candid and say, hey, Sam, the $3 you gave to this person over there, how come it wasn't five? That's that
Mhm.
kind of question.
Yep. And see, one thing like I don't want to be beholden to any like financial interest sponsoring anything and or like an academic institution where this is being done. Like let's see, it's like I want to be independent and like contribute as I see fit or I'm able to do without like having investors or or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very
Uh,
leery of
uh-huh.
the bad influences of money
Oh yeah.
Follow the money.
Yeah, but that's how things get done in the world. It's
today
crazy.
with our
Yeah, the
current
today.
system. Yes.
Right, right. Okay. So yeah, so like I was listening to an interesting podcast because Sam's yeah, okay.
Here's Sam Chan.
Oh, Sam Chan, welcome. It's
Yeah.
not on video
I
yet.
I'm just
pause.
blowing my nose, okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I'm gonna just stop sharing for a minute.
Yep. And give Sam Chan a chance to get oriented here
Sure. Yep.
in the middle of a deep thingy.
Yeah, hi Sam.
Hello. Hi, Eric.
Hi.
Hi, Sam. Hi, Barry.
Good to see you again. We didn't see you yesterday.
Yeah. Busy running around.
I
Aren't
still
we
have
all
to
running?
occasionally blow my nose.
Mhm.
Sorry to interrupt.
Well,
That's okay.
you want to orient Sam before we resume?
Well, first, how are you doing, Sam?
Busy. Lots of, I guess, situation that demand my attention and demand my presence and demand my compassion. And I'm grateful that I have those opportunities. Yeah, the most severe one, I guess, the most is a older lady, 88 years old, found out the pancreas cancer, late stage, aggressive, in hospice care. She might probably go by the end of the month or something along that line. So I don't know how to deal with that. I'm learning as I go.
Who is this?
It's my employee, one of my employees over, she been working for me for over 20 years and don't have a lot of relatives in the neighborhood. So I'm sort of the big brother figure for
Hmm.
her. people that need me and all that stuff. So found out about 2 weeks ago that mom had some discomfort and turned out to be pancreas cancer, late stage,
Mhm.
aggressive.
That goes pretty fast.
Yeah, I go pretty fast. So and she refused having treatment, and which is a good thing. I mean, look, you can go suffer and go to chemo, and this the chance of recovering is less than 2% or something on that line, and it's pretty bad. It's just,
Yeah.
the fluid is not even passing through the.
Mm.
I call it plumbing stuck.
Yeah.
So I have to put a tube in the stomach to allow the liquid to come out. So it's like, okay, but she looks great. I mean, she's happy, and so I'm slowly to introduce her to Buddhism and chanting and sutra and all that stuff. So, and she's accepting it slowly, and because she's from China, right? So basically, is they don't believe in religion things. So, so you want to convince someone that don't believe in religion to have religion, introducing them to them is. So it's like gradually. So I always remind myself, it's like walking on up the stairs, one step at a time. You pay full attention to the next step you're about to take, not the one before you.
Hmm. So, like, would she believe in an afterlife?
Yeah, but it's a traditional Chinese way, which is you go to heaven or hell, or depend on who to do. Then there's a judge in hell waiting for you to punish you whatever bad deed you did.
Wait, that's traditional Chinese?
Say again, sorry.
Is that traditional Chinese?
Oh yeah, big deal, big time. If you interview 1,000 of them, 995 of them will tell you that. Yeah, traditional Chinese. So they believe in God in heaven, God in the sky, we call it heaven, and there's God in the ground, which is the ground, hell, down, and then all the heroes in the historical figure become God somehow, deity or whatever you call that. Yeah, and then a lot of Taoism mixed into the Buddhism. They believe whatever they believe that allow them to survive, allow them to get being killed by the emperor and the people in power and big bullies around in the town. And yeah, it's complicated. It's a long story,
Yeah.
but essentially is not in the as I say, the religion in the Western and Eastern is very different. So for me, like a church is a community that care for people, that you have compassion for people. It's a community that help each other. So we all chip in and help each other. So that's a church. In 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 the East, you're not allowed to do that because when you form a church, then you have political power. You might fight the leader in the thing, so you're not allowed to have a church. So see, can you imagine a structure of a society that you're not allowed to have a church, not allowed to have people gathering?
That's
You
why the
know,
Falun Gong was persecuted, right?
yeah. I mean, today even have some countries are like that. You're not allowed to have more than 3 people gathering, right? I mean, I'm sure you can ask ChatGPT how many countries are there that you're not allowed to have more than 3 people gathering.
And we experienced that during COVID.
Yeah.
Right of assembly is right there in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution.
Yep.
Freedom of assembly.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's different, and the other thing that also is that in the Eastern world, because the way that it works is that if you lost the battle, you become the prisoner and you get killed, and therefore, you know, I cannot say too much because it's in the recording mode, right? The bottom line is that if you know you're gonna get killed, if you lost the battle, you're more aggressive, you're more brutal, and you're more whatever you call it. You give everything you got to make sure the other person is dead. Think of that kind of mentality. It's no longer that okay. It's your turn to become the king for 4 years, and next will be my son's turn to, and so we can't rotate between our family. It doesn't work that way. When my family lost, my whole family get wiped out. So if you think of that structure, where are you going to find peace? I mean, in some ways, it's almost like Israel in Palestine right now. It's like, I want to make sure you have no more military power. I want to make sure this, and yeah, it's messy when you don't have like, okay, I'll, it's like the best example is like, you know how the Iran did something and then de-escalate. I mean, that's the best way to dissolve a war, you know, de-escalate. And think about the escalation that we just saw not too long ago. What does it take for two parties to de-escalate? About saving face, about losing face, about you got a political power you have to hold on to, you have to all that. Like unless everything have to go perfectly, in anything that goes wrong, the escalation just got blown out.
And there's a strong third-party influence as well.
You got it, and a lot of hidden agenda behind the de-escalation. All that dynamic, yeah, right. So again, it's and if you was if you trigger down to the very bottom between my family and your family and my neighbor and your neighbors and your power and my power, so all that down to the micro level.
Now, can we understand how that belief system evolved? That it's your whole family impacted by, like, is that from years ago, from the dynasties or
Yeah,
whatever?
if I want to explain about this, it's pretty straightforward. You know, when two emperors are fighting each other, they take away all your food. They take away all the best example was I was saying, like, you know how we say that in US we say we lined up and to get on the bus, even though we have to wait for the next bus.
Mhm.
In China, if you to let other people go in front of you, you never go home. Or like crossing the street with so much traffic that if you would allow the traffic to pass through you or allow the car to pass in front of you, you never go home. So
Mm.
in the structure of the Chinese or some countries in that way is that when the ruler take away all your food and take away all your livelihood, you got nothing to do, and then you need to protect your family, you need to feed your family compared to the neighbors. So when they have a chance, they have power, they'll take all your thing away because even they take away everything that you have, that's not enough for them to feed their family. So it's major survival mode in paranoid.
Wow.
So how do you, as a father, you have 3 kids and they need to eat, they haven't eaten for 2 months, and now you have the opportunity, you have a knife that the other neighbor doesn't have a knife, and you, what are you gonna do? I mean, so that's how it become that. Oh, nothing, violence in paranoid mode. Yeah,
Yeah. Now,
I
see,
mean,
someone like me, I've never heard this before. I've
yeah,
never heard this type of belief system or religion. And so, yeah, like, how would I relate to somebody who grew up like this?
yeah,
The same thing you're going through.
yeah. So think of this way again. It's like sort of your entire family had no food for a month, and now
Mhm.
you have a machine gun in your hand, and the whole neighborhood, everybody have enough food to last half a day. What would you do?
Yeah. But for your friend, in these last whatever time she has, does this belief system serve her, or can she adapt to something like Buddhism?
Yeah, it's hard because you want to change somebody's belief is because it's like, let me give you an idea. Like my grandma, like best way you can explain it, my grandma, when she left China, she was 18 years old. That's after all her brothers got killed. All her brothers, like I think 3 or 4 of them, get killed, murdered by in the 1900s. Okay, in China, get all killed, and her father say, "Here, this is a dollar coin. Okay, go get married with this guy. He was an orphan." It's like, and then okay, he's a young man. He can take you to Asia. Okay, go walk for a month, to the side ocean side, so you can get a boat. Then you pay them to get you. And when she arrived in Malaysia for 70 years, she was so afraid to go home to China. It takes me 10 years to convince her it's safe to go there. They don't do that anymore, blah, 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 and all that stuff. Then
Mhm.
then I have to say to her that, and then she have this belief that when she dies, she want to come back to Malaysia to get buried, because when she was at 70 years old, she already bought the coffin and bought the land for grave and all that stuff, because she think that her kids and all that may not be able to afford the funeral for her.
Mhm.
Okay, so I said to her, if she died in the US, when I bring her here, I'll put her in the gunny bag and send her back, bring her back with me. And then she was convinced in that, so she's willing to go to get the passport of the embassy, and then she came here and spent 9 months with me. She was afraid to go back to China because all the history have. I mean, can you imagine a young child growing up and all the brother get killed in front of you? Would you go back to that place? How do you convince them? It takes 10 years.
Yeah, well, trauma lasts generations.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And that's how the people in power gain power. And they don't realize that. That's what I mean by power abuse. So it's like, okay, when you have power, you have a tendency to abuse, because you're blindsided. Then anything that you need to be pay attention to. So it's hard. Survival is the only thing that keeps us wise, unless you're.
Yeah, I guess just see what would give her peace in her last days.
Yeah.
What can you do to help her through this?
Yeah, it's just a lot of times it's sort of like you reassure her, you this, and you give evidence. So it's a good thing that I learned NLP, right? So you bring, you learn to bring the good things, you talk about good things and anchor them with the good things, and then hopefully the bad thing didn't trigger, and sort of like make a pot of soup that's so yummy that you don't make sure that the fry doesn't fall into it or something like that. You destroy the whole thing. So it's complicated. It takes a lot of compassion, a lot of patience, a lot of energy, a lot of history and respect. And I learned, still not enough learning. I took a class on hospice care, believe it or not.
Yeah, good. We all go through this. I had a friend who passed away at 75, and I was running to him in the hospital, bringing him stuff that he wanted.
Yeah.
And in the end, he just wanted to like have a meal with me, like a Shabbat meal, and to remember the good things that he enjoyed about that.
Yeah. 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 Talk about Shabbat. I'm one of our mastermind that we have was for the day that of the Shabbat day, right? So I say, okay, so we were in the Buddhist temple. I said, well, we'll have a Shabbat in the Buddhist temple.
Why not? Yeah.
and you see, for you were fine with it, but it takes me some convincing that anything happen, it will be on my shoulder. I say, I take
Yes.
full responsibility for something bad happen.
Yeah, if someone
We
drinks
have
too
a
much
wonderful
wine,
Shabbat
right?
in the Buddhist temple.
Yeah.
How many people you think of that would say that have a Shabbat in Buddhist temple?
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I think they are friends up there. They are friends, God and Jesus. I'll have to tell you a good joke about Buddhism and interfaith and all that. There was a story about this guy was trying to do skydiving. It takes his friend about a month to convince him that skydiving is safe. So he's asked a question, what if the parachute doesn't open, right? They say, well, you have a spare one, don't worry. Or we carefully check and make sure that it's open and all that stuff. So if the spare one doesn't open, what do you do? Say, well, that will really never happen. I say, okay, fine. I convince him. And then he jumped. After so many seconds, he yanked the main parachute. It didn't open, got stuck. And after a many seconds, he looked at watch. The secondary one didn't open also all that. Then they say, oh, that's his time. I'm a Buddhist. I'll say, Buddha, please help me. So the Buddha appeared in the sky and then put the hand underneath him. As soon as he landed on the palm of the Buddha, you know what he say?
What?
Thank God. That's one of my favorite jokes in interfaith gathering. We always tell a joke, always have fun with it.
Yeah, it's like following a logical syllogism to its conclusion. So,
So I
yeah,
hope you have fun with it.
yeah, you can't have God and Buddha. G ampersand
Yeah.
not B.
Yeah, a lot of times, in a sad discussion, all that stuff, I always bring joke and fun to diffuse because
Yep, you
this is
have
all
to.
life about.
Mhm.
I count how it's not how many breaths you take, it's about how many times I catch your breath.
Yeah, it's about connection. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I don't think you were here, Sam, maybe a week or 2 or 3 ago, but in one of those past sessions, the question I asked was, there's so much war going on. There's so many wars being waged. Do we know what it means to wage peace?
Mhm.
And I wanted to understand, to me, there's many elements that have to interconnect and have to be evolved for that to happen. If you insist on nonviolence, it doesn't come without justice. If you want justice, it doesn't come without education. If you want education, it doesn't come without values and without care, without mentoring. So there's a whole complex infrastructure of society that must evolve before we know how to wage peace. And I was curious about that. I think we had about an hour on that in the previous session. But that's what your story reminds me of, Sam. Over.
Thank you. This is a big subject. I always come down to the difference and make the difference. So for me, when you're explaining this and remind me about what we talk about is this. I call it grieving process. So it's like you have something that you have that was so good, and then all of a sudden you lost it. It could be whatever it is. It could be a phone, it could be a book, it could be anything at all, even your health, your car. You will only grieve for it after you lose whatever that it was value to you, and you cannot find a replacement for that. Friendship, it could be as well. So until you lost it, you will not be able to appreciate it as much as anything else you did. So it could be a good meal, could be a good food, could be a good restaurant, could be a good chef, anything that is. So until you lose it, so peace. How could you lose peace? Until you lose peace. So in other words, another way of saying is that you have to take someone that's in a peaceful country, put it into a war zone, let them live there for 3 months, and then you bring them back to the peace zone. Then you will appreciate peace. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but essentially, this is all come down to until someone lose something, they won't really fully appreciate it. It's like my wife, doing laundry for me, and when she's not around, I have no laundry. It's like, okay, honey, what for me was laundry was in the background. I don't see it. I don't know. I lost until I lost it. Something along the same line. So the question is, how do you create a structure? How do you create a situation where someone would lose the peace they had, and then now they would appreciate peace, and then they, of course, once you have, then they will fight for peace and all that stuff. This is another joke that we talk about in the UI. You fight for peace, unless you fight for, you won't have peace. So it's like, okay, fine. So again, it's about how do you have a grieving, whatever that you need to grieve for before you can be something that's important to you, that you want it.
But we all have lived through some of these periods. The world has not been devoid of war for almost any amount of time.
But it
But
doesn't affect you, though. It does not affect you.
you
You
think
still
it
have
doesn't
what you
affect
have. Again, that's what I'm saying to you. You have to take someone from the peaceful world, put them in Gaza, let them live. Or like Netanyahu, I would love to have Netanyahu live in the Gaza for 3 weeks or something like that. That would be a magic one. I would love to have, like, boom, Netanyahu live in the Gaza for 3 weeks, and the head of whatever, I call it switch places, right? So let the emperor become the servant become the emperor for 3 months or something along that line perspective. Until you can create the experience, they won't be longing for it. They won't fight for it. They won't,
I think that's an extreme case. I think there's most people who, even though they don't live in Gaza, they understand already that there's atrocity going on there. You know, and you don't have.
Understanding is, let me put it say, when's the last time that you fight for something that like your life depend on it? When was the last time that happened to you? Meaning you're willing to sacrifice, meaning that you're willing to give up whatever you need to give up so that you can have what you have. For me, it's very simple. It's my wife when she was sick for in 30 plus years ago. She was in a Stanford hospital for 6.5 months. I would give up anything. I will sell everything I own so that I can have her health back. So do you have experience that, in that put you in that situation? And then if you reverse engineering back to what causes that, it must be something that for you that you had and you lose it. Because
I think that's an
for you to
extreme
fight
scenario.
for peace, for you to attain peace, is something that it's not like staying in marriage. You hate the person, but you stay in marriage because of your kids or something like that. It's like, which one is more important? It's like, again, this is for me. For my 60 years of studying humankind and what motivate people and what's compelling reason. I call it, you have a compelling reason that this example I give all the time is a twin tower. I have a 2x4 across. I have a candle that is bending a rope. It's about to break. That someone's hanging under the rope. Would you, without thinking, jump over and then run over the 2x4 across from one twin tower to the next twin tower, or like entice you with $5,000? Would you run over? That's not amount of money will make you run over. But if I were to hang someone that you love with a rope or with a burning candle, you don't even think about it. You run right over. That's called compelling. It's a reason compelling enough for you to do the unthinkable.
It's not unthinkable, and it is compelling. And there are many other compelling scenarios. So yes, I do understand your scenario. There are many other compelling scenarios already at play today. If we can think about what's going on to the next second, third, fourth, fifth generation from now, that's horrible, given what we're doing to ourselves today and the planet.
Then the
So
question
yes, that's also a very compelling scenario. It's not necessarily a candle on a rope, but it's also a compelling scenario.
So the question is, I'm waiting for someone to run over the 2x4, right? So it's like, what's the evidence that someone is actually already doing that? What's the evidence that proves that it is compelling enough for them?
Do you think that there's only one solution? That running across the 2x4 is the only solution?
I'm just saying it's a
Complex
metaphor.
scenarios aren't so simple. So we have to work together to understand what we're going to do for the third, fourth, fifth generation. That requires discussion, compromise, modeling, planning, reasoning, action, investment. It's not a simple 5-second run over a 2x4.
I hear you. Let me tell you this. Of all the big movement like Martin Luther King and Gandhi, is driven by one person. It's called the leader. Do we have one?
Not that I know of yet.
Yeah. Thank you.
And there's a
That
back.
tells you that
Wait. More important than leaders are followers. Followers made Martin Luther King. Followers made Buddha. Followers, if they existed, followed Jesus. Followers made Gandhi. So it's more than just the individual. It's who understands and who's willing to stand behind as well. And yes, given that, we have people who are very wise, who can speak about what we need to do for the future. People like Bernie Sanders, Okay. But we don't have followers who are smart enough to actually gather in masses. Or even if they do, the system then gives them no voice. They diminish the voice that these followers have. Look at the same thing with AOC. She's actually quite wise for her age, and she's actually doing a good job in Congress. Bernie's trying to do a good job in Congress. The whole Democratic Party squashed him. Democratic Party is going to squash AOC. The media is not smart enough to understand who's actually, able to put together good, reasonable future vision and platform. The media just stupidly just pays attention to whoever shouts very loud. So it's not just a matter of leadership, it's a matter of followership as well.
Yeah.
Over.
Trump has followers, Hitler had followers, Mussolini had followers, Stalin had
That's right.
followers.
So it's not
All
just
of them have the same scenario that we have today. Gandhi had the same scenario. Martin Luther King had the same scenario. There's no difference. Followers are being built one at a time.
Yeah, and it takes time.
Yep. So
King
we
didn't immediately rise to prominence. Neither did Gandhi.
So what the leader need to do so that you become one of their followers?
The problem
Besides
with
martyr
leadership,
themselves.
even
need
martyring
to-
is insufficient, because if a system or a vision is simple enough for the masses to follow, almost by definition, it's not comprehensive enough. Simple solutions are easy to understand. Simple solutions are easy for the masses to follow. But simple solutions in a situation like we have today, I don't think there is a simple solution. That's why we don't have easy, clear, single figureheads. We have multiple.
I would say that the leader have not given you a compelling reason, compelling enough for you to follow them yet.
Okay, let me ask you. Elon has a vision. He wants to take humanity to Mars. Are you following Elon?
Well, I spent the money to buy the first car 12 years ago because I believe in him to save the factory in Fremont. I believe in him that he wanted to give the EV thing. I was the first one that spent, 120,000 or whatever that was spending to buy the first car for them. So that I want to make sure he have enough support. So that to me, that he gave me a compelling reason. So I would spend that was the most expensive car by far. It's like 3 times of what I normally spend on a car. But I'm willing to go behind him, right?
Or are you now able to support him in his views of what free speech means?
They're two different things of someone. I only support when he give me a compelling reason that compel me for that reason in that moment. It's the power of now. So he changes, people change, they have a hidden agenda. Everybody have when they are on the pedestal, it's much difficult for them to leave, because there are so many conditions they have to satisfy for you to see that as a compelling. But if you come out from nowhere, you're clean, it's like you always, what do I say? Now there's a lot of leader come out. I can see so many holes, I can poke you so that you fall. Like he has so many holes right now that everything he does is wrong or something like that.
They're holes of his own making.
Yeah. Same with Trump.
Yeah.
Trump
digging
was
his own grave too.
He was a hole to begin with. He was just one big hole.
Yeah, but it's becoming more visible. It's a leader has to garner attention, but it's also very easy to garner negative attention.
Let me say this to you, okay? You think Martin Luther King doesn't have holes? You think Gandhi doesn't have holes when they were?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying
Of
that.
course they do.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Gandhi had plenty of holes himself.
Yeah.
But you take a look at other people who are very wise, okay, like Carl Sagan. How many people followed Carl Sagan? Very few, right? Because his message doesn't resonate with most people, because most people can't understand it.
How come Paul Sagan doesn't work on peace?
What?
If Paul Sagan working on peace and be a peace leader?
Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
Let me give you another example. How about Gene Roddenberry, his
Yeah,
Star Trek
there's
vision?
another one. There's another one.
Yeah, and it really broke barriers. Like Michelle Nichols, her life was amazing. So, yeah, what does it take for like a bottom-up movement to emerge and gain momentum? And why isn't it happening all over the place? Or is it? I don't know.
The
I'm-
way
I'm
I
Another
go
obscure
about
name, Jacques Fresco.
the way I go about things is that I look at a successful model. I can be successful, for example, Gandhi's moment, right? So I can reverse engineering that and see what it takes for them to get there and all that stuff. So if I can reverse something, it's almost like a scientific way of doing things. So how can I reverse engineering a successful experiment so that I
Well,
can get it? Now, except
that-
that you're no longer dealing with atoms and molecules and
Mm-hmm.
metals and all that. You're dealing with human being and intention and survival and wealth and power and as well. And those are the variable in the scientific experiment to reverse it.
Well, I think in Gandhi and Martin Luther King, there was a clear picture of what was wrong. These Indians oppressed and the Black people oppressed. That was a clear image that people were able to get behind. It's more unclear these days. It's muddied, I think.
Okay, so when you have a muddy situation, you don't have clarity, you won't be able to take a good picture. So you have good picture, you won't be able to convince people.
Well, people disagree on what the picture looks like.
There are two belief systems, right? We have believe that the justice is served, and the other one is justice is rigged. Like how do you convince them?
You can't if people are so simple-minded.
Until you can convince them, nothing happened, my friend.
I understand that. That's the quandary we're in. We don't have reasonable, smart people that have the undue influence that stupid people do. And unfortunately, we give stupid people influence because we let everybody vote. That's
And
why
that's what
things
I
don't
was
get done.
Yeah, it's a conundrum and a paradox.
Yeah, that's what I was saying about the 17th Amendment. The original intention was not that people vote for senators, vote for the House. But that's US system. I'm sure there are other models out there, other countries that we can learn from.
Other countries have invested more in education. We have let our education system just go extremely badly.
Right. And
And
as
then
a
we complain
result,
about why we don't have smart people in government. We created this for ourselves.
right. And we've outsourced a lot, letting the other countries take our jobs.
Yeah, because the beans counters say, oh, we can save some beans this way.
So it's driven by money there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, money is this huge power thing, and should money be redefined?
Yeah, because in capitalism, ethics and social good aren't part of the equation.
Right. Yeah. And the love of money is the root of all evil, so they say.
Now, what if all the money became worthless? Hyperinflation, how would people live? Would they figure it out? Would they
Back
get
to
together?
hunter-gatherers. We go back to being hunter-gatherers, I guess.
The people with
Yeah.
farms would be the ones that everybody starts attacking.
Yep.
So as you can see, it's a complex scientific experiment involved
That's right.
psychology.
That's why I'm saying simple-minded solutions are too simple. And simple-minded solutions are the only ones that the masses will follow. So almost by definition, you can't get the masses behind good solutions because they don't understand good solutions. Not only that, they don't let good, smart people come up with and put in place those good solutions because the system is rigged for stupid people.
I would say this, if you think of it this way, the founding fathers did a great job thinking ahead of, greater something that's so much better than everything else out there. The last person built the bridge have the best bridge, right? So, and even that structure has some, flaws in it right now that we have figured out. The small crack, the hairline crack that become an 8-inch crack now, like that.
Yep.
So the question is, well, maybe we have to go for a newfound land and create a new country to start this all over again with this fine adjustment.
That's why
that's one way to do it.
I might still own something called the 8thcontinent.com. I want to create that 8th continent.
Well, I mean, we invented cyberspace and then it got corrupted and polluted for a long time. Not a long time, but for a decade or two, cyberspace was a utopia, or pretty
Yeah.
close.
You guys know who Mike Honda is? He's an ex representative from the Bay Area. He was a Japanese American,
Oh yeah, my
and
Honda.
he's a representative of Congress. I think he's still around. I don't think I think he's still alive. Anyway, in the year 2000, I bought a Honda S2000. It's a two-seat, basically a street legal race car.
Yep.
And I was invited to be in the Asian American Cultural Parade in Mountain View in the summer of the year 2000. And they put Miss Cambodia in my S2000, and she was actually going to ride the 1 or 2 miles or whatever, and had a nice new car, and it was going to be cool. But at the very last minute, somebody said, "Oh, Mike Honda's here. He should be riding in a Honda." So they took Miss Cambodia, put her in a different car. They put Mike Honda in my car. But the good news is I got to talk to Mike for the afternoon.
Oh,
And he asked me, he's been very much thinking about whether the internet ought to be taxed. And I said, Mike, you got to wait. You got to observe. Figure out what's going on before you start writing laws, before you understand what's going on. So yeah, it was a few years before he got involved and started supporting taxation of e-commerce, online. But at that time, taxation of e-commerce was still very, very new. Anyway, I got to know him a little bit.
First, the ISPs are taxed. We pay for the ISPs, and the ISPs pay taxes. So there you have it.
The way I look at it, there are multiple reasons why you have to tax. They need money for some project. Somebody need to fund the whatever this infrastructure that's to sustain the project. And then of course, they tax you because they could.
Sure, I'm not saying the taxation wasn't a good idea. I'm just saying, you got the location of the buyer, you got the location of the owner, you got the location of the goods, you got the location of the .com website, and you got all this interconnect in between. How do you tax that system? I could put my servers in a Cayman Islands. How do I, then get taxed, for example?
Well, income tax, for one thing. If income is ultimately flowing to you,
Sure, but I could register it as a Cayman entity.
Then you're not an American. I mean, you have to live in the Cayman Islands and not be an American and pay American income
And
tax.
that's what those PO boxes are for.
Yeah, I suppose
Remember, law is written by whoever has the power. They can change a lot of things you want to. Well, you can have the server in Cayman Island, but then you live here in Washington, you'll be taxed. I don't care where you put the server. It's not important to me.
Not if I don't withdraw the money.
Yeah, but then you can't spend it in America. Once it just pile up in the Cayman Island Bank and
Sure. I wait until 2026. I move to Canada or Taiwan and then withdraw the money.
You can do that all you want. And then when you move, then they'll say, well, because you stay here for historically speaking, you got to be taxed because you're hiding behind the
If you're gonna
illegal.
do that, as you say, that's right? But how come they're not doing that to all the billionaires that have their accounts on, Isle of Man or Cayman or Switzerland or,
Did I say that whoever have power get to decide whatever they want to do? Billionaires, their friends, they will make a law so that it accept. I remember there was one law that all the companies have to pay tax except one company or something like that.
Yeah. So essentially you're agreeing with my premise, which is today the capitalist society is not a just society.
Yeah, because you're buying the vote. The reason you get vote because they have money to advertise to convince you.
So
right?
without a just society, we cannot expect that the social good be the priority. It is not the priority.
yeah.
So we should not be surprised.
There's
And
so
it
much
might not be
deception in this.
sustainable. It probably isn't sustainable. The only question is how and when will it collapse?
It collapses when the resources that the billionaires and trillionaires need is no longer available. In which case, then we turn into they buy a half of the population to keep the other population in line because they've got the resources. This is the Elysium story all over again, right?
Mm-hmm. So where are we going with this discussion here?
I don't know. To hell in a handbasket?
The point is, it's not a simple solution that can have simple leaders say, 2-second sound bites and, convince the entire world. That's not a model today that I think works.
So what's working?
I don't have the
Because I'm
solution.
interested in working model, because until I have a working model, I have no place to start.
We can either try to create one, or we can just say, sorry, I'm just going to live within the current system.
Well, the entertainment industry is working, so it has to be harnessed to be an edutainment industry as opposed to pure entertainment industry. And that sort of makes sense, that is adapting education to edutainment.
Well, Fox News can say that's what they're doing.
Well, I don't know if I would agree with that.
They would claim it. They would claim that they're, definitely in compliance with what you just stated.
Well, they may be entertaining. I don't think they're educating anybody.
They would claim they are.
Well, snake oil salesman can make a lot of claims, but it's bogus claims. So making a claim doesn't make it true.
So anyway, this goes back. The reason I'm asking these questions is because I'm still curious. What does it really mean to wage peace? It requires evolution of education, of justice, and basically capitalism either needs to be replaced or severely upgraded.
I think it means making systems thinking a required faculty of the general public, which right now you're lucky to find 5% who have any competence at systems thinking.
Right.
I would zoom in on waging peace. Okay, so how do you know when you see it, or how do you know when the experiment is successful? How do you know when it is happening?
I think by the
people are
derivative.
healthy. People are not taking up arms against each other. People are living, in accordance with the best, healthy practices that we know of. The earth is healthy. Other species are healthy. We're not overtaxing any particular aspect of the environment, because all of those will create stress, and all of that stress will eventually create conflict. And those are systemic issues.
To get back to that question, I think it's when conflict is diminishing and not escalating. You can look at the derivative. Is it escalating or is it diminishing? And if it's diminishing, every step there's incremental diminishment in conflict and discord.
Yep. The disagreements don't have to escalate. They can be clarifications that then, reach accords.
Yeah, de-escalation, consistent de-escalation and diminishment of conflict.
Okay, so look at our conversation here today. Are we what do you call it? De-escalating?
I think we're in good conversation. Yeah.
I think that's sort of an overarching objective, although it's not explicit. It's not like we're measuring it minute by minute. Sort of maybe periodically we're saying, have we been escalating? I mean, Sam points out special cases, and he amplifies the examples of escalation and says, those are the best sessions, or when we had a big fight. I'm not sure that's what we want to advertise to
cheek, Barry.
Say again?
It's tongue in cheek.
Oh, well, yeah, but nonetheless, I mean, you're drawing attention to to conflict and escalation, and maybe we don't want to do that.
Because those are opportunities to learn from.
Yeah, but true. But who's doing the learning? The general public?
Whoever watches could do the learning.
Yeah, well, the watchbird has to watch himself, right? Who's watching the watchbird? Self-watch.
Nice. Thank you, Barry. My point is that if we can't even agree about the way that we're supposed to be measuring and this escalating or not,
yeah,
we have no way.
It's really easy to get into an escalation pattern and a runaway escalation pattern that you're not self-monitoring and using the best practices for de-escalation.
Right. So I do agree with your statement. My only claim here is the solution is not as simple as find a leader or find a compelling example.
No.
It's not that simple.
No,
I wanted to ask, could this be looked at as a scaling problem? So say you had a small community where they're farming and taking care of each other. that works, but then how do you scale it to a city? And as Engelbert's shown, you really have to think differently
Yes.
as you scale up.
Yes.
And-
Community is very hard to scale. As you
Yep.
build a community in size, it becomes less of a community and more of a competitive culture.
Yeah, because then you
Yeah.
bump up against other regions as well.
Well, if I
Right.
can say this, is that scaling is only the second step after you have decided the measurement is accurate. So like I can only scale if I agree on the ruler, the physical dimension is everything, the way I measure is accurate. Because unless I can agree about the way that we measure this acceleration and all that stuff, unless we can measure it properly, scaling has no meaning whatsoever.
A good
Scaling can
example
have
was
multiple meanings.
A good example was discussed on a rerun this morning. Etsy was initially a small community of people doing handcrafted stuff. So, and then as it grew, it dropped the handcrafted requirement. And so the concept of a community of people doing handcrafted work basically dissipated. And it became just a very large competitor to eBay and Amazon and all the others. And it didn't scale. Etsy didn't scale. It lost its small community of handcrafted ethic.
Okay, good. Now, see, the theory of the United States was you would have all these little state laboratories, each figuring out something different, working in different ways, and then something good would come out of it. Now, coordinating, if you could leave the scale at the small and have good coordination, and that was the tough part. They had the Articles of Confederation, and that didn't work. Then they came up with the Constitution, and they tried to limit powers and really to prevent too much power from being accumulated in any one place. So, yeah, initially it worked. We were different people back then.
Yeah.
People have changed, and that's the problem now. Yeah.
And the Constitution is doing a poor job of limiting power. Its original notion that don't let anybody have too much power, it's sort of losing its ability to do that gradually.
From a different perspective, let's bring in Bhutan and Singapore. They are model for a lot of countries. If you want to bring in Switzerland or Netherlands, that'll be fine too. But let's focus on Bhutan and Singapore. What can we learn from them?
Could you give us a little background? What?
Well, Bhutan is measuring the national happiness, right? Things like, all that stuff. So how are they doing? Is there a country you would love to say, oh, do you have citizenship application? Let me move into with you. Are you willing to move to Bhutan?
I would throw in Denmark as well.
Yeah, Denmark. Will you
Denmark, the one that won the happiness prize last year, one of those Scandinavian countries did.
Yeah. So the question is, now that you found a model that's already, people have done all that for you already. So let me move into the community and be one of them.
Speaking for myself, yes, I would like to move to Denmark. That's a very compelling scenario. But I also note that the countries that seem to be doing well that they're using as exemplars are very small.
Yeah.
So they actually have a more community type feel to it than, let's say, the United States,
Yep.
or Brazil, or
Yep.
India, or China. Yeah.
They may be small, but how are they handling immigration or migrants? That's a good question.
And they
Yeah.
probably have very good education systems as well.
Yeah, I think they do.
Okay.
Finland, throw Finland into the group as well.
Yep.
So education, community, sense of, respect for fellow citizens, respect for their own environment and ecosystem. Those are all key elements.
Yeah. So can you increase your size and maintain the sustainability of your culture? And that seems to be that they go in opposite directions. That scaling works against sustainability of the initial culture.
Yes. Because any system built for one scale doesn't necessarily work at a larger scale, and people don't understand that.
Yeah, I
Thank
guess
you.
I think that's an insight that's pretty provable, culturally or sociologically or economically.
But what would it take for it to work at a larger scale? Like what infrastructure?
I think the answer is a social contract, but I've never seen a social contract be able to scale.
Mhm.
That's the problem, is that social contracts tend to break down as you scale.
All right, so could you have multiple small communities with and something overarching for their protection? Like the U.S. government was originally envisioned to be a protection of all the states, just a certain enumerated powers for defense, whatever.
I
But
mean,
it
if you
grew
could have
into
an ethical culture that was universal, yes, but we don't seem to be anywhere near having a universal ethical culture in our
There's
species.
too
on
much
the planet.
religion involved that has undue influence.
Well, they had tried to do that. The theologians thought they could do that, but as religions grew, that ethical culture thing kind of got corrupted and polluted and you
yeah,
know,
and look what it did with
diluted.
the indigenous tribes.
Yeah, it got diluted.
Yeah,
And that dilution it sort of seems to be intrinsic to scaling.
How can
yeah,
even
but also
talk about social good when we have a system of government here in this country that killed off hundreds of millions of indigenous people?
I don't, you can't.
that's a big problem coming to surface now that the knowledge we've lost.
We are hardly saints, nowhere near saintly in our culture. I mean, some of the ideals, but we couldn't sustain the ideals.
Well, even in that initial model, women were not citizens.
No.
Blacks were not citizens.
And well, plus we had slavery, which is a real um, problem.
That was
We
the
couldn't resolve.
economics back then.
Yeah, we couldn't. I mean, that was the love of money, because slaves are cheap labor, right? So
And then when
Right.
slaves were quote unquote freed, we made them slaves again by making them criminals.
yeah, or wage slaves. Yeah.
Now, could you say that your iPhone is a product of slave labor? Yeah,
How many people in what was the country committed suicide jumping off the roof?
yeah.
What's that story? Remind me of what that story comes from.
Apple had their manufacturing plant at some company that began Foxconn or some.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's a manufacturing plant in China.
China, yeah.
Foxconn. Okay, yeah,
They
sort
were
of.
overworked so much that people just said, "Hey, I don't have a life. I can't do anything. I'm not getting ahead. I'm just gonna end life." They just
That was like 10 years ago.
multiple people threw themselves
Yep,
off the
10
roof
years
or
ago.
committed suicide.
Yeah, that's why I don't remember the story until you reminded me of it. Yeah.
And that's what built the iPhone.
Yeah. Well, to make them cheap and ubiquitous, yeah. Thing is, you could have them as a luxury good.
They're still not
That,
cheap.
that would have sustained, but then you don't have them ubiquitous. It's a luxury good.
The manufacturing costs were kept cheap, but the actual margin was still very high.
So it's the margin that causing the problem?
No, it's the squeeze on the manufacturers.
Well, they apply for the job, they agree to work for them, and they have the right to quit. I guess they don't have the right to quit.
Sam, I can't believe you just said that.
I'm just telling you that I'm making it so that in the sense that they're so complex
Yeah,
that there's so many
that's
things
the way
to
the
get an idea.
system describes it. That's the way the system apologizes, quote unquote, for itself.
Because it become a political thing, okay?
It's an out of
based
balance.
on based on the economics.
It's Koyaanisqatsi, system out of balance. And keeping system in balance as it grows it becomes, I'll say, nigh impossible.
Koyaanisqatsi. Koyaanisqatsi.
Is that a Navajo word? I think
You guys remember the video?
Oh yeah, there was an Omni movie. I don't remember the audio, but I remember the.
That was the chant that went on through the entire video.
Oh, did it? Okay, I don't
Yes.
remember the chant. I remember the. It was just all no people in it, just scenes, slow motion scenes, clouds moving, and
I think it was that plus some a sound score made by Steve Reich. I think it was. No words, no narrative,
and no people in it.
just imagery, video, and music.
Yeah,
and chant.
and no people in any of the scenes. I
The
think.
world in chaos.
Yeah. That was like
Point
20
is that
years ago when that
which
Omni
system-
came
It was
out.
like 50 years ago that came out.
Oh, it was 50 years ago. Okay. Long time ago.
Yeah, my point is that any system that grow going to have crack, going to have problem, and we learn from it, we adjust it, and we fix it. It's like you want to look for excuse or reason that causing the system to crack. Well, anytime the team system, any system that grow will have problem by the
Corruption.
definition. So don't grow the system.
Absolutely. No. See, this is why there's an earlier reference to COI, okay, which is community of impact that I've actually referenced before. But the first two things in that set of principles were define good, be explicit for yourself, and yet every review cycle, every retrospective, re-examine what good means to you, yourself.
Yeah.
That's the key. If we don't have systems, starting with people who do this, then you're going to get calcification. You're going to get, brittle behavior, brittle cultures. We need that retrospective. We need that feedback loop. We need that constant reevaluation of what good means.
Yeah.
Well,
Doesn't that go back to Socrates?
There was a company that said we do good things or do no evils. And what
Yeah,
Yes,
that used to
Google,
be
yeah.
Google. That's no longer
Yeah,
Google.
do no evil.
happened?
And wasn't one of the Socratic dialogues about how do you know what's good? How do you define good? Wasn't that one of the
Yeah, I
famous?
think Republic,
Socratic dialogues?
Plato, a lot of people have covered that topic.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying I don't give a shit what anybody says. Do it for yourself. And then see if your experience, your life, gives you a different view as you live life.
Yes, I did this for myself.
Yeah,
Just for
there's your
my-
quarter
yeah.
key set, right?
Right.
What are
That's it.
those?
Okay. Well, see that there's a circuit to connect it to the Raspberry Pi. So
Oh.
I had to play with that. And I figured out, okay, these 3 resistors will simulate a joystick. And that's my little thing. Yeah. I had fun doing that,
If it ain't fun, we ain't doing it right.
I have to thank you, Sam. I think this is a conversation much needed.
hmm
And I apologize if I've come across too strongly.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. But I do think that this is the way we get to mutual understanding, is to get the clarification, to delve into what each people thinks and, what we can actually co-create together. That's what I find valuable about this. So
Thank you.
since
And
it's
getting
top
to
of the hour,
mutual
I cannot
understanding of
express
ethical
enough
reasoning.
my appreciation for you listening to me and trying to respond to you.
I'm a complex human being. I look at a lot of things in so many ways, in so many things, and I'm just telling you that, until you find a good model that's already working, the chances of creating a working model is so slim.
That's why I'm a failure. I haven't done that yet. I'm very transparent about that failure.
Yeah. And also I bring in Bhutan and Singapore. It's like, again, it's one of those, invite you to move there and then experience that if they're what's the price they're paying that you don't see, the blindsided you that you say, well, it's so good until
Right.
so it's like, sort of like marry pretty girls. And then after marriage, it's like, okay, what happened? You don't know how to cook, you don't know how to take care of kids, you don't know how to do housework. Like, I need to take care of everything that you need to, plus spend all the money to pay for your makeup and the beautiful dress. Like, then what is it? Neighbor's grass is always greener until you see the water bill, right?
Yeah. So much for marital bliss.
So watch out for the price we paid that we so wanted peace, the eagerness of having the peace. To me, let's see if I can explain this to you in a way that you will get it. It's like Amitabha is the way that we chant. It's called the Nirvana. In there, there's everything is good. It's like even we talk about cow dung, right? Cow dung is fertilizer. Cow dung is a fuel for cooking rice, in India. Okay, so if you can make use of the bad things that people label is bad into good, you got it. There's no waste in this world. The carbon dioxide is good because if you know how to make use of carbon dioxide can be useful. We have a bad situation. The question is, do we have the wisdom to make the best situation so that it's useful to us?
people do have the answers, like permaculture, regenerative agriculture, but it's not getting popularity for some crazy reason.
For me, that's the answer of peace. Instead of trying to force for
Yeah, okay, peace. Well, if people have food and they could raise their kids, that there will be peace. If there is a common thing that they all want, like,
Let me bring
yeah,
you another perspective, if I may. It's really important. A couple that's no fight, always peace to each other, nice to each other, they will never last their marriage. The couple that fight each other and they have equal power, that they can fight really hard at each other, they fight it out. They
mhm.
actually have peace, and they'll stay in marriage.
Assuming they can make up after a fight.
Yeah, that's right.
Can't make up after a fight, you're in trouble.
That's right.
Yeah, in fact, the reason for asking that question actually begs the one that you're hinting at, which is, if you take a look at the planet, there are sometimes cataclysmic fires. There are sometimes cataclysmic volcano eruptions.
Yeah.
There's sometimes cataclysmic typhoons and, tidal waves. So peace does not necessarily mean lack of those things. The forest has to get cleared every once in a while by a forest fire. Unfortunately, there's a lot of life lost. And in fact, we've seen through even human history, civilizations have come and gone. So
What's next?
we're saying,
Where's the next one to go?
exactly, we're going to see our own extinction soon if we don't level up. And maybe we're not meant to level up. But I think we have something to say about it.
So my challenge to you is that, can you see the peace in the war?
I think we could
Yeah, I
learn
could definitely
from.
see how that makes sense. I can definitely see how the system is working.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, do we want that system, or do we want to evolve to a slightly or maybe even drastically different system? And if the system entails the loss of much life, fine, let's go pick which lives are going to get lost. And today, it's the poor. It's the, disadvantaged. Those are the lives that are sacrificed due to war. It's never the sons of the rich or the rich themselves. It's the disadvantaged. And who knows how many Einsteins we've lost among the disadvantaged.
When I grew up, my father has 8 kids, 6 siblings, and he's making like $30 a month to feed the family. We are not poor. We are poor financially, but we have abundance of food around us that we don't let go get hungry. So it's a different perspective. So peace in self. So it's like us, we come in peace. We might have a fight in verbally in discussion and disagreement and what have you and all that stuff, but we come in peace and we always stay in peace as we
And
live.
that's awesome. But I'm just trying to say, aren't you familiar also with the stories of people who come from broken families, who don't have much other opportunities to get jobs, who get conscripted into the army, and they get sent to the front lines, and those are the first lives to get lost.
Yeah.
So you labeled it as let's talk about the broken family. What's broken family definition to you?
Many Black men were criminalized for minor offenses so that they could be put to work in the criminal quote unquote justice system, which by now has been privatized. So that's a form of slavery right there.
But
Absent,
it's not broken family. I'm asking for a definition of broken family. What makes a family broken?
absent parent, mainly. Number one, absent parent.
When you have I remember my grade 10 teacher asking how many people have mom working, how many people have mom stay at home, and we were trying to compare the grades. And so you miss your mom when your mom's working 8 hours a day and don't see them. So you have absent family, absent mom, absent dad. That's all. That definition, dad is always not home, in Malaysia. And it's like, I grew up with my grandma. I grew up with, I don't have a parents in the house. So the question is like, absent parents by choice or absent parent by force or absent parent by this. Okay. So again, I'm trying to make things more complicated so that you see that it's that everything happened for a reason. Okay. Like my dad, I see my dad every 2 weeks, one day on a Sunday. Would they consider absent parents? I'd rather have. Some people were saying that I prefer to have alcoholic parents than the workaholic parents or something along that line. Again, the situation we created is that the scenario created something, a product of it, and what we as we are concerned is that we can help whatever we can help to help the situation. But making a judgment about broken family, for me, I don't know what to do with it.
That's why the situation is not a simple one.
Yep.
If I may, I'm going to tell a very shameful, very embarrassing story about myself, one I'm not proud of. My father came to the United States to get a PhD because he got accepted into Stanford University. This is in the early 60s. So I and my brother and my mom stayed in Taiwan. My mom was still getting her, I think, her medical degree. So my brother were mostly raised by my grandparents for 2 years. So finally, after I was about five and a half or so, we finally got the opportunity to come to the United States to rejoin my dad because he was close to getting his PhD. After getting off the plane, my mom said, "I'm going to finally meet your dad." And I didn't remember him because I was only 5 years old. When he left, I was 3 or younger than 3. So effectively, I didn't remember who he was. So I remember this much, and it's the shameful part. I asked my mom in Taiwanese, "How do you say I hate you?" And when I first saw my dad, I said, "I hate you." And I'm sorry I did that.
I would tell
I've
you that
since reconnected with him, but that was not a good event.
I would say that the hate in a young child, I do have my kids say, "I hate you, Dad," because I wouldn't buy the ice cream that she is looking for. So to
Still,
me,
that's not the first impression you want to make when you reconnect with your dad, right?
Right.
I understand that, but the kids has a different meaning of for them it's I call it digital. Either I love you or I hate you. They don't no dimmer switch.
I understand that. I understand that
It-
now.
Yeah, what you were is you were estranged from your father
Yes.
through no fault of your own. And he basically was meant to say, I'm estranged from you. You're a stranger to me,
Yeah.
which was a true statement. But it doesn't mean that therefore we are going to remain estranged. No.
If I may analyze it a little bit, if you allow me to do it, that I have a look at a 3-year-old to 5-year-old, it's like I go to daycare or somebody, everybody else have a dad. I don't have a dad. I'm missing out and I don't know what to do with it and I'm totally lost. And so why are you missing my life? Like I hate you because of that. Something along that line. If I can sort of put some explanation behind it. If I will, a 3-year-old that don't see my dad for a long time, and that's what I would do because
It's clear I can
Yeah,
see it in perspective now. It's just that that's not a memory I'm proud of.
Yeah. So you can go back to the broken family as being estranged from a parent.
that's right.
I mean, they can be physically present, but still estranged. There's no relationship.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that, Sam. And that's just what I mean by broken family can be interpreted in so many ways, in so many situations. Like your father have no choice. Your mom doesn't have a choice. You don't have a choice. So under the no choice situation, so would you consider you have a broken family or you don't have a broken family? So that's my, it's like, okay, I don't think you're a broken family. You're a wonderful family, even though parents is not there or something along that line. But
I am messed up.
Well, never fully recovered from the estrangement, even as well. 5 years when you're only 5 years old, that's 100% of your life. It's not,
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years in your 60s is, you can during COVID, we were estranged from people for 3 or 4 years, but you know,
The
So-
first 7 years of your life is basically character building. It's sort of like, the major branch gets formed. And that's why it takes me 5 years to decide whether to have kids or not to have kids. Once I decided that, I'll make sure my business is scale enough that I can be home every day, every night.
I also noticed that Sam's interest in collaboration is recovering from estrangement, because collaboration is essentially the opposite. It's a constructive relationship as opposed to the absence of a relationship.
That's right. Good
So-
job. Thank you, Barry.
That sort of explains, where you're getting this impetus for collaboration from. It's making up for the absence of collaboration early in life.
And this is what I mean by bad things can be good. Thank you for the bad things happen to you, Sam, for you are doing wonderful, good things right now. Thank you, Sam. I know. I don't wish on anybody, but it's a good thing that come out of it. Thank you.
We'll see.
I think if we all looked back at our lives and we thought, well, would we really want to change anything? Because I think every experience contributes to who we are now. And I think even the bad things, it's part of us, but
Yeah.
there's something that we got from it still.
I would like to have gotten I would like to have gotten the silver lining without the cloud being so cloudy as it was.
Mhm.
Why did the cloud have to be that bad to get the silver lining?
It's called learning from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, or our own mistakes, but yeah.
But it's our life.
Yeah, could I have learned it without it having been such a painful experience?
Well, this is what I always ask, like, what's a gift that you get from this experience?
Yeah. And then you turn around and you say, can I give the silver lining away to other people without them having to go through the same painful trauma to get it independently?
Will they be able to get as deep as you have received the gift of this time? I mean,
I don't think so. I think that when you try to give away the silver lining, the other people don't get it quite so deeply as the original person.
that's
So
right.
maybe some do,
It
but
doesn't come with the same degree of pain.
no, that's the whole point. It doesn't come with the same degree of pain. But on the other hand, it might prevent them from having to go through the same degree of pain.
Which was the intent of the offering in the first place.
Yeah, right.
So you also, so I say, how do I say this? You also, because they avoided the painful process, so they don't receive as much gift. So you just mess them up the opportunity for them to receive the gift they're supposed to receive.
It's a little bit like a vaccination. It sort of helps immunize you from the same debilitating illness that you barely survived yourself.
That's right.
Yep. Although a certain percentage will still go through it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't reach everybody.
Right.
Some people just are unreachable. That's a fact of life, that sometimes you can teach and sometimes you can empower to learn, and sometimes you can't do either. It just doesn't work.
So now we're at here, this discussion at this moment, at this structure, what peace means to you.
De-escalation of conflict. It's basically, in a phrase, de-escalation of conflict.
And
Thank
the
you, Barry.
opportunity to live life without fear.
Thank you.
That's a high goal. That's not necessarily natural, but it's a high goal. I think it's one we could build for ourselves.
Or at least
In other
without
words, if we
paranoia.
eliminate food insecurity, housing insecurity, warmth insecurity, those are things that, ideally we eliminate so that we can then live less stressful but more productive lives.
I would say living life without paranoia, which is debilitating fear. It's okay to have some anxiety, the wisdom of insecurity.
There's healthy stress and there's unhealthy stress.
Right. But you don't want to have so much fear that you're paralyzed.
Right.
So manageable peace. Manageable peace. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I think it's an inner resilience, which takes time to build. The experience, just knowing that okay, I can get through whatever comes my way. Just to have that confidence that no one can take away my mind from me, that I'll always have that, and the ability to think through, enjoy what I like to explore, that curiosity. So there's some fundamental stuff that no one could take from me.
But one has to learn to use their mind efficiently, because as you age, your mind becomes less efficient.
Yep. Yeah.
As I think about it, I have a metaphor coming. If you remember a story about Zen master pouring tea to someone's holding the cup. After it's full, it's still pouring, and then the hot tea will just
Right, it's a
burn the
waste.
hand, and you have to let it go. It's like, okay, I have enough of the war. Let me have peace.
Nice.
All right, my friend.
Yeah, thank
Wonderful
you.
conversation. May peace be in you. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck.
Good session. Good session,
Yeah.
Sam.
I appreciate it. Yeah, let's take a break. Mhm.
Thank you. Until next time.
Thanks.
Next time.
Yep. Yeah, Sam, just Facebook or email or whatever. Just let me know what you want to do.
Eric, are you available now?
Yeah, I could. Do you want to just
I'll
pause?
send you a Zoom
Yes,
link
I mean-
in Messenger. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thanks. All right.
Sure.
See you guys later. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.